2, 4, and 6 tried to defeat 3, 5, and 7, but the odds were against them. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another AlphaStar cast. Quick reminder that I'm in a sub-feud war with Wardy, and you can help me win $1 and a lot of pride by subscribing to the channel. So if you've enjoyed these videos, I hope you'll consider doing so. That being said, there's no tax on this. It's a free YouTube video. I hope you enjoy the show. Let's jump into it. Spawning here to the top left, we have an unknown Red Protoss coming in at the ranking of
Grandmaster.
And their opponents, oh, they're playing Zerg. To the bottom right, the ever blue, the one, the only
AlphaStar.
Now this comes from one of the final replay packs. Again, that's why we're at the Grandmaster MMR level of things for AlphaStar. So this was kind of closer towards the end of its run. But still, if you're watching and whenever you're watching, please know that King's Cove and the balance patch here is a little out of date to what it currently is live. It's not going to change too much though. Luckily, at the time these games were played, a lot about AlphaStar and specifically playing AlphaStar as a human player wasn't really about dealing with weird AI cheese that could do impossible to keep up with micro and tasking like that. But instead, the Deepmind team wanted to create an AI that could learn to play Starcraft on its own. You know, mission accomplished, checkbox there. Then beyond that, they wanted to take it a step further. Could it compete against humans? And with a relatively high success rate, the answer so far has been pretty much yes. There have been a few AlphaStar losses that we've been able to cast on the channel, but I think on average, if memory serves, most of the races had about a 66-ish% win rate. So it was actually a pretty good run on the ladder for AlphaStar, and getting to the Grandmaster is no small feat, especially with the amount of games we've been casting where AlphaStar has been cheesed or has itself done a little bit of an all-in. This has been an interesting variety of things coming out of watching AlphaStar play. But going back to Zerg, typically when we watch AlphaStar play Zerg, it likes to do more all-in style plays. So, you know, Roaches, Ravagers, try and bust your opponent early on. Slow Lings, but in this case, Speed Lings. We might actually have a bit of a different game coming out of AlphaStar. The last game I cast versus the unranked player, we saw AlphaStar go for a much more normal build and a lot less of an AlphaStar build. So going for Zergling speed like this falls to me in that category, especially having pulled off of gas. This is going to be the only investment for some time. We'll likely see an attempt at the third base and lots of strong macro play, which is what is AlphaStar's strong points. Watching how AlphaStar reacts to this will be quite curious though. We do have some Zerglings on the way, but this pylon block is not just a pylon block. Our human players following it up with an adept that has come across the map very quickly. This drone doesn't stand a chance at getting this base up, and in fact, yeah, won't even survive to see the next day, unfortunately. AlphaStar in the meantime has gotten some really good scouting, seeing what's on the other side of the map. There was a stalker built to push off the Overlord, but there's a nice little safe spot right here. And AlphaStar should be able to wedge its way in there just fine and keep eyes on their opponent. But here's where it gets interesting. Drones are no longer being built despite a third base. There's no saturation plan coming out of AlphaStar. It appears to be what is soon going to be an all-in with Lings. Now, AlphaStar's had some interesting use of Lings. Oftentimes gets derped outside. It doesn't quite look like they know how to handle things, if they're even playing against it correctly or not. But the first set of Lings does dive forward, and a little bit scary in the wall here with the Stalker. We'll likely have to sacrifice the Stalker. Goes for a recall. That's kind of a cool move. But the wall's up with a single adept behind. Now we got the Oracle coming out too. Oh my god, the stutter step out of these Lings is unreal, but unfortunately with the Oracle here, stands no chance of getting building kills in this situation. So AlphaStar ends up wasting a lot of Zerglings, continue to produce more, really wants to break down this wall, but our human player in this case holds firm, not just with an Oracle to defend, which by the way is 18 kills on it now, but with the additional layering of walls behind it, this was never going to be a problem. If there's Roaches and Ravagers, you could argue it would, but not just Zerglings. This is a pretty perfect hold from our human against a very all-in attack out of AlphaStar. But AlphaStar is going to try and play out of this by the looks of it. We see drones now in the production tab. I can't say I agree with this being something that anyone, much less AlphaStar, would choose to do in this situation. But, and hear me out, this is where I see some minor pros in this scenario. Because AlphaStar's strengths have always laid in its macro. We talk about this all the time. Hypothetically, if this is a game now where our Protoss player decides to turn this to be aggressive, and you know they're going to focus more on getting Archons and go across the map, being annoyed with this Warp Prism, and a lot less focus on the third base, then there is a world out there where AlphaStar could pull ahead economically, or at the very least minimum catch up. Remember, even though it wasn't used for anything more than larva, a third base was established this game. So AlphaStar has 3 hatcheries to work off of. Those oracles are pretty risky going in the first place. The first one had used most of its energy up in the initial attack. So third base coming down for our human. This will keep them on track with going forward in the game. But for AlphaStar, already exploding with drones, up to 45, so it's played catch up fully and entirely, but will have better income due to the fact that these are spread more evenly amongst 3 bases instead of all inefficiently at the natural, as is currently happening here for our human. There's a Warp Prism that's been spotted. However, there's not really a lot to do about it right now, as there's not much anti-air for AlphaStar. Its queens have been pulled down to the south, and that Warp Prism is probably not a real threat where it currently stands anyways, and that's maybe an assessment AlphaStar's made in this situation. But we have those High Templar, which are going to be used for Archons, and funny enough, our human player is going to play this kind of normal coming out of it. This is where I get a little question marky with the decisions here from our human. This is not a bad choice. Archons and a Warp Prism are relatively safe and a long-lasting way to harass your opponent while keeping them from harassing you at home. All hands on defense means nothing's attacking your third. And if that goes off, great. But as you can see here, AlphaStar just pulls the drones away initially. Oh, no, 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 no. Do not pull those back in, AlphaStar. I don't care how good you think you are. Oh, my God. That almost went from being like a minimal amount of workers killed to all of the workers killed. Archive still splash damage. Oh, my God. It's a massacre. AlphaStar gets absolutely destroyed at the natural base by such a simple motive of harassment. And this is something too, if those queens had been brought up here, if they had pushed off this Warp Prism, this Templar wouldn't have been timed and warped in when they were. This could have been, I don't want to say stopped, but prevented, at least for initial attack's sake. But despite the losses and AlphaStar losing quite a few drones, we should mention that AlphaStar still has a lot of drones, going back to the macro way to play Zerg. We also have a 4th base finishing up, which means more larva, which means more ability to probably not continue droning, but start investing in army. You'll notice the reason AlphaStar is pulling ahead in workers is because it is falling a little bit behind in army. And for a game that started off with a pretty failed lane attack, this has actually turned into quite the macro game out of both sides. Whether that's a good or bad thing, I'll let you decide, dear viewer. For me, I'm just kind of like, I feel like the Protoss missed the opportunity to kill AlphaStar. After such a good defense, and immediate deflection or retaliation would have been in order, but keeps the queen alive. Very nice. Ad time. Have you ever wanted to crush your enemies at the press of a button? Have you ever wanted to kill 2 birds with 1 stone at the press of a button? Well, now you can by subscribing to the channel. That's right. This isn't a Raid Shadow Legends ad. Please, guys, I really want to win this race to 10K. Thank you for watching my channel. Let's get back to the game. Well, as the Warp Prism continues to posture and look for a way in, AlphaStar has continued to just drone up to 80 now. Spread across 4, now becoming 5 bases. Spire's on the way, and I've got my thoughts reserved about whether the Spire will be a good move or not in this game. But for now, there's not really a lot to react to, per se. The Immortals, the Sentries, this is so standard, right? This isn't anything weird and ridiculous. No fast Disruptor play or Colossus. This is just a very brute force attack that's about to hit AlphaStar. Now, if AlphaStar has the supply, defending this is totally doable. Keep in mind that coming into the attack, there's like 55 army supply for our Protoss, but so much of that is in Sentries, which, while granted through force fields are pretty annoying to deal with, don't do that much damage. So I'm really jaded on this. Do I think AlphaStar can defend this? Probably not if our Protoss player full on commits. I mean, it's like half the army supply. The type of supply is not good against what AlphaStar has. And there's a weapon upgrade, basically nullifying the armor. Boldly trying to build some Ravagers in the front line. Not sure what the plan there was for AlphaStar. We're going to lose its forwardmost base at this rate. Drones are pulled away from the fight, now pulled into it. No, middle walking back home. It's a big mistake, and that worker kill count doubles. Last time we checked in, it was 50 or 26. Now it's all the way at 50. Oof. Things are not looking good for AlphaStar. Another one of these short games, I guess. 10 minutes. Well, it meets the YouTube, I guess, algorithm requirements, right? Although, hold on, I might be calling this a little bit soon. That southern flank with the roaches is looking really impressive. Look at that split pullback. Cutting around to the top side. These Archons are out of shields. Once they're out of shields, they're basically out of life. cutting down the zealots here isn't that effective, but it's getting the job done. And all of a sudden, AlphaStar's got a gigantic supply lead. Now, granted, at great cost, right? That was like 20 plus workers died through this engagement. A whole base went down with it too. AlphaStar's going to go for the immediate counterattack by the looks of things, which is the right call in my books. You know, hit your opponent while they're weak. You've just killed most of their army. But I don't know if this is enough to really break through. And AlphaStar's decision to swap to mutas after this comes off of a fairly low economy. So I can't say I super approve this move. But ooh, if it can catch the warp prism, then this 2 or 3 mutas could be well worth the investment. Ravagers continue to posture. This 4th base was made quite some time ago. I guess our human players really focused on the micro part of this game, so didn't respond by pulling the probes too soon. Only just now getting it saturated. These oracles managed to pounce on the few units that come out of the stasis trap. That's a nice move there. These oracles have killed quite a bit this game. I think what's been missing most from our human is scouting. You know, there's not a lot of observer spread on the map. There's no pylons. No revelation. I do feel like playing blind against any player is a bit dangerous as Protoss versus Zerg, but luckily they'll scout what's coming here with the oracles anyways. Right side's got a warp prism with some zealots. That's not something you can leave unattended, and AlphaStar's actually kind of close to being supply blocked, so having these mutas at home spawning when they do is critical to the defense, not just to stop the warp prism, which just disappeared, but also to deal with these zealots. Also, unfortunately for AlphaStar, they don't quite know where their opponents are. Yeah, I guess we talk about lack of vision for our human, but it's kind of the same story for our robots in this case, or our AI, I should say. AlphaStar has not had a good idea on where the army's been, and flying Mutalisks face first into Archons might be one of the worst moves you can make. Got to be very careful with how these are used. This investment out of AlphaStar, by the way, so expensive. Currently having 15 mutas, that's 1,500 minerals, 1,500 gas. It's totally going to be worth it if AlphaStar can pull this off and do some great harassment. You know, pick off a pylon, grab some of the workers. Unfortunately, though, as you can see, our human is adjusting. Double Stargates were made in anticipation of dealing with the mutas when that warp prism was lost down to the south. So we do have some means of Phoenix coming out. Not here just yet. Butchers and Ravagers going to find a bad intercept in an army. They don't want to fight. Now it's full retreat, trying to kite this down a little bit. The mutas still continue to do work. Unfortunately, though, for AlphaStar, they do kind of appear to be on just like attack move command. They're not really doing a lot of focus fire because I think most of the attention is being spent down here. Of course, the Bow's trying to hit, but the mutas don't really have an answer. 3 Stargates pumping out Phoenix. Chrono Boost on all of them, desperately trying to get a means to fight this army, because if they connect with 2, the mutas will win that fight. Connect with 5, and suddenly it's a lot better for our Protoss. And in fact, it suddenly looks a lot better for our Protoss. Defending this shouldn't be an issue. And while this goes on, they've not left their army idly sitting there doing nothing. They've gone for the counterattack to try and punish AlphaStar for reaching out this far. I do want to take a brief moment to remind people, by the way, nobody knew this was AlphaStar when they played this live. As far as they're aware, this is another human with a barcode on the ladder. This could have been Cyril for all they know. Everyone's trying their best and playing their hearts out in these sort of games. And there's no gaming the system. I think I gotta give a special mention to my man Florencio. People's giving him a lot of hype for being able to beat AlphaStar more often than others, but Florencio also knew what he was playing against. A lot of these guys in the ladder did not. I love Florencio. If you don't know who I'm talking about, you gotta look up the Florencio files on Pig's YouTube channel. I did not know about this guy until about a year and a half back. The wildest ride of my life learning who he is. The most specialized player the world doesn't know about. Anyways, bit of a base trade in a way. You know, Hatchery's gonna go down to the south, these Immortals and Archons. Bases up here going down to the Roaches and the Mutalisks. It's hard to call this a full-on base trade, but that's kind of the situation we're at. The Archons are dishing out a bunch of damage to shut down those bases. Roaches continue to delete units, just disappearing from existence. I talked about that investment earlier for AlphaStar. This was so expensive for the mutas, and I wasn't exaggerating when I say that. The resources lost just plummeted as 21 mutas were removed from the game. Now with only what is a handful of Roaches remaining against things like Archons and Immortals, I don't know if AlphaStar can pull out a victory in this case. The type of army supply AlphaStar's playing against is just naturally good against what it's using to defend with. And of course, with tactics like recall, it's really frustrating because AlphaStar loses these bases, loses economy. I mean, that was like with 4 hatcheries dead now total. Not to mention, there's still no answer here for the Phoenix. They could just lift up the drones all day. AlphaStar's certainly not out of the game. AlphaStar did a lot of damage in retaliation, let's not forget. But that being said, both players have been reset to a pretty, frankly, position in this game. Although I will give +3 weapons a huge nod for a human. Zealots are probably going to be the cheapest instant labor you could make, and the +3 weapons will tear through just about anything, even roaches. Oh god, but the drone's just being camped. No spore crawlers, no nothing here to defend. Nothing here shoots up. It's a massacre. It's an absolute massacre. We've seen a couple of games where AlphaStar's lost a lot of workers. We're at 89 dead drones so far. Workers being pulled away because they can't defend. Overlord's going down too. Such an expensive amount of losses. Yet AlphaStar, funny enough, still has minerals to work with. The hardest part, the hardest ship of this has been no gas. No gas at the expansions. Expired geysers soon to be in the main. There's like 1,000 gas maybe between them. Like there's not actually proper saturation of gas mining of the natural. AlphaStar's got a real gas problem right now. In fact, I think has probably lots of larvae. Yeah, unspent because can't spend properly. There's no point in investing in like a Ling Flood this game. It's got to be roaches. It's got to be Ravagers. But I think AlphaStar's getting a little hard stuck here on that supply count, which is super awkward because this goes right back to AlphaStar's strength. It rarely falters in this sort of a way. I don't want to go as basic as to call it a glitch in the system, but it really does feel like our AI has just maxed out its capacitors. Throw in other like jargon that I don't know what I'm saying. The thing is, though, at the end of the day, it doesn't feel like AlphaStar knows what to do. Every other part of this game, when Starcraft is played out, AlphaStar seems to at least know what it's doing. It might not have a plan, but it knows what it's doing, and it's very evident through the decisions it makes. This game, a very, very, very concentrated lack of anti-air paired with the wrong type of units for the late game. This just feels like AlphaStar's confused. Like if this was a human player, I'd be talking about how they just don't know what to do. They've been mentally broken, but AlphaStar can't be mentally broken. So it's just a little interesting and odd at the same time. Like maybe there's a build limit. Like the AI never taught itself how to build Ultralists because the games never went on that long. It's a strange it's a strange idea to post, but kind of seems like it might be the case. Regardless, we do have some roaches still hopping, and if these had better upgrades, I could make some arguments for this being a fight, but as you witness here on the front line, oh god, it's a massacre! The roaches get absolutely annihilated by a combination of storms, immortals, and zealots. The force field's trapping them in place. It just became like shooting fish in a barrel. You don't typically use storms against roaches, but in this case, our humans get free to do as they like. They are not needing to save the storms for the Hydra swap. There's no Hydra swap coming out of this. And this is the first, I will say this outright, this might be the first AlphaStar cast in 50 some odd videos where I'm a little disappointed in what I'm seeing out of AlphaStar. I don't have a lot of criticism to say other than that, just expected better. But after the lane slide, this turned into a macro game. I thought, oh crap, we're gonna get a really awesome, amazing game out of this. We did get a really long game, but GGs are finally called. And just to finish that thought, I was expecting a lot more out of AlphaStar's macro. So if you guys enjoyed the video, please, I'm begging you, subscribe to the channel. If we lose this race to Wardy for 10K, I'm gonna just cry myself to sleep. Save me some tears, hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you guys on the next one.